Another day, another episode of Lucas asserting his dominance, because on today's episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast, it is another mock draft 2.0 of this offseason. Welcome in Lucas Wenzel, Tyler Plath joining you. And Ty, I know your head was kind of down the whole time. You're looking off to the side, and I know your eyes were just rolling to the back of your head as I tossed my phone down, because read it and weep. Why is it not focusing? Look, I'm trying to show Ty that I dominated. There it is. 38% the people were in favor of my team last time. The people don't lie, Ty. I dominate these mock drafts. I'm ready to do it again on today's episode.
I'm just ready to stop the stupid streak that you're on. I don't understand what a guy has to do to be in the good graces of the people, but seriously, you are on a roll right now, and it's time that roll comes to an end.
Well, you know what? You are close enough to me in this mock draft where you might be able to make that happen. Then again, though, you were within 2 picks of me last draft and I still beat you. So I don't know. Maybe that doesn't actually make you feel that much better. But we'll go ahead and decide who drafts the better team on today's head-to-head mock draft battle. Ty, let's get on into it. So here we are, mock draft 2.0, 12 team full PPR redraft mock draft. I'm drafting from the 5 spot. Ty is drafting from the 7 spot. So we are within 1 pick of each other, 4 or 5 picks around the turn after us. So we're going to kind of have to call our shots on some guys here, Ty, because, well, actually, you know what? We actually might be able to let the board play a little bit more here, because when you're playing in the middle of these drafts here, it's not necessarily about calling your shots. It's more about playing the board than anything else. So, you know what? Maybe we get a little bit more competitive today instead of forcing ourselves to reach on the turn for guys we really want.
Or we just don't go absolute snipe fest on each other like we kind of did the
I mean,
last episode. But
look, I mean, if we want to do that, we can make it one of those. We can make this a Cody Rhodes, AJ Styles bloodbath and an I Quit match if you really want to do that.
Just don't throw stairs at me, though. If you don't throw stairs, we're good. But
little WWE chat there for all you people who appreciate some good entertainment out there. Ty, let's get on into it. Full PPR 12 team mock draft. The 101 goes. There it is. Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, St. Brown, Christian McCaffrey. Probably the most unorthodox start you're ever going to see in the world. We're going to go forward with it, though, because realistically, I think at least 3 of those first 4 will probably be within the top 4 picks. I think you will see Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, and Jamar Chase go in some order of the first 4. Amon-Ra is the one that gets a little interesting. I think we do have some Amon-Ra truthers out there, though. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take my highest ranked wide receiver. He's my number 1 overall player in fantasy football this year, and take Ceedee Lamb. I mean, this Dallas Cowboys offense is set up to thrive again this year. They don't have a running back room. They're going to put the ball in Dak's hands and say, you know what, Dak, prove you're worth a contract. They're going to let him chuck it around the yard again. And with the wide receiver 2 being Brandon Cooks in this offense, I think it's still going to be Ceedee Lamb who cooks this year. So I think we get another big year from him. He's still my number 1 overall player in fantasy football. Justin Jefferson goes off the board next. So Ty, you got a decision to make. My guess is that you're going to go one of these running backs in Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, at this point, the wide receivers are great. I mean, AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, they're all great. But getting an advantage at that running back position with one of these top 3 guys is a sneaky advantage that can give you really, really good, production and results when it matters most in your fantasy season. That mainly coming from Breece Hall, who's going to be my pick here. I really think that Breece can be a top 5 pick this year, should be a top 5 pick, because I think he's got, with his positional advantage, with the production that he can give you in a Jets offense with a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers, I really think like he should be in that top 5 conversation. And this draft just kind of went on drugs a little bit, just because it went 4 wide receivers in the top 5 and McCaffrey wasn't the first pick. But I think Breece if you can get Breece, I mean, Bijan at the 108 even too, I think those are great values to start out your draft.
No fears of Braylon Allen hype coming out of camp right now? No fears
Oh
about
my
Jalen Allen?
word. This happens every year that there's a team that's fascinated with their 5th round, 6th round rookie running back because the expectations were just bare minimum, and they're like, "Oh wow, like we kind of have something here." Stop it. You've got something already with Brees Hall.
Bijan Robinson, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Puka Nakua, Saquon Barkley wrap out the first round. Then go Jonathan Taylor. Team 12 goes running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London, Kyron Williams, Josh Allen. So Ty, back to you. You got some juicy wide receiver names on the board here still. And Marvin Harrison, Devontae Adams, Chris Olave. You could even, bring in some of these running back names as well. Who are you looking at here?
I will say real quick, I appreciate you leaving out Brandon Ayuk because you know how much I'm out of Brandon Ayuk.
Well, you and I both. I mean, you and I both. I
No.
don't think he's worth the mid-second round pick.
No chance. Yeah, like you said though, the first 2 players, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Devontae Adams, that's what it comes down to for me. And I think a lot of people are gonna, buy the rookie hype of Marvin Harrison Jr., right? One of the best, if not the best, wide receiver prospect we've seen. But he's not. I don't have him statted out to be the highest scorer, amongst the other wide receivers available on the board right now. I actually have Devontae Adams still as a top 10 wide receiver this year. I get the Luke Getsy hire isn't the most exciting, especially with this play calling history in Chicago. I get it's Gardner Minshew as a quarterback. I know that Devontae Adams is 31 now, so we're getting older. Yeah, but when you are Devontae Adams, the clear number 1 target in that Raiders offense, I will not doubt. I will not. I will not give up any kind of. What do I say? I like Devontae Adams a lot. Maybe that's the best way to say it. I like Devontae Adams a lot still this year, and he's my pick. There we go.
What is the Kevin quote from The Office? Less word do trick. Okay, well, I can't even remember
Why
what the
say
quote
many
is. I'm
word
going
when
to
it's
botch
short
it.
word do trick?
Yes, bingo. There it is. Why say many word when you word do
Best
trick?
line ever.
I think sometimes that's what's best in podcasting. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes off the board next. I was really happy to see that there was 3 wide receivers on the board here on your pick, Ty, because I would have been happy with any of these 3. I would have been happy with Devontae Adams, Marvin Harrison, or Chris Olave because they are 11 or they are 9, 10, 11 respectfully in my rankings. Devontae Adams at 9. I actually have Chris Olave at 10 and Marvin Harrison at 11. So I'm going to go ahead. I am going to take Chris Olave here with my pick and start double wide receiver to this draft. Devon Achane, Sam Laporta, Travis Etienne, Brandon Ayuk wrap out the second round. Then Stephon Diggs, Josh Jacobs, Mike Evans, Nico Collins off the board next. Sleeper apparently wants me to start this draft out with 2 of the same 3 players that I did with my last mock draft too, because I'm going to go Travis Kelce here. He's still the clear one in Kansas City. He came out and said recently, like, "Hey, don't like my workload." The guy doesn't want to see a cut in his load. He said, "Give me all of it. I don't have much left in my career, so give me what I can before the wheels fall off." And if you're not going to have Rashee Rice, if you're going to wait for Xavier Worthy to develop, if you're going to wait for Patrick Mahomes to build up some rapport with Marquise Brown, Travis Kelce is still the dude. I mean, in a bad year, he's still at tight end 1 in fantasy points per game. So instead of drafting Kelce at the 106, 107 this year, I get him at the 305. Thanks. Gladly. I'll happily invest in him there. So he's just one of those guys where like he keeps coming around in the middle of the third, and I'm like, I mean, I guess I'll keep taking him here. He's not like a must draft player for me this year, but I'll keep soaking up the value where I can get it. Because Derrick Henry then goes afterwards, Ty. And this is where the board doesn't get ugly, but it's a clear teardrop in players, I feel like, at this point. You're clearly into the, at best, bottom of the barrel of tier 2 wide receivers into the top, the top of tier 3.
Yeah, this is where you start to kind of play the board a little bit. There are plenty of wide receivers available that I think will be intriguing to a lot of people. Deebo Samuel is available. DJ Moore is available, and I've sung his praises quite a bit this offseason along with Cam, but There's Michael Pittman Jr., there's Malik Neighbors, there's Jalen Waddle. But all of those wide receivers are in a tier for me. And there are running backs available still that I've got one guy, actually, I should say two guys that are still, or, I would say are more valuable because I've got them in a higher tier according to their position than these wide receivers. Um, it's way too early to call a guy a flag plant.
Wow.
It's way too early to call a guy a flag plant, but Isaiah Pacheco in the third, fourth round, I think there's a chance that maybe I took him a little too early. Maybe there's a chance you can get him beginning of the fourth round this year, but Isaiah Pacheco is my running back 8 this year. I can't pass him up in almost any draft that I have been in whether it's best ball or these mock drafts. I know in our last mock draft, I was talking about getting him in the third round and I passed because then I got James Cook in the fourth, but I was like, man, I kind of wanted Pacheco a lot. And see, like I'm infatuated with Isaiah Pacheco this year. He was an expected fantasy points beast towards the end of last season. This offense, while they did improve with wide receivers, right? You brought in Xavier Worthy. You brought in Xavier Worthy. You got Hollywood Brown. I still think this offense needs the run game to be a big part of their offense. And that's what we saw. That's what catapulted them to a Super Bowl run last year. So I'm taking all the Isaiah Pacheco I can in drafts this year.
I mean, I'm a big fan. I love Isaiah Pacheco. I absolutely think he is a smash pick this year. Again, I think, I mean, you can totally make him your flag plant for this year. That's totally fine by me because I think he would have been in consideration for me. I absolutely love his value this year, but I think you're 100% right. Down the stretch, when they really started leaning into the run, is when Isaiah Pacheco thrived. And what did they do all throughout the playoffs? They ran the crap out of the football, and what happened? They won the Super Bowl. Why would you go away from that this year with how good Isaiah Pacheco has been? Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, Lamar Jackson, DJ Moore, Malik Neighbors wrap out the third. Then on the turn goes Michael Pittman, Patrick Mahomes, Rashad White, Devonta Smith, Trey McBride. So Ty, back to you. 2 running backs and a wide receiver to start your draft. I got to imagine you're looking at wide receiver here. And I think there's one on the board who I can predict you're going to take.
See, this is where I'm torn because yes, there is a wide receiver by the name of DK Metcalf. Big fan of him. Zay Flowers is there. Big fan of him. T. Higgins is there. And I'm a big fan of T. Higgins. But look, I'm kind of getting a gift here. And it may not make this will make a pretty unique build. But I'm going to go Jalen Hurts here.
It's the right pick.
He's my quarterback too. And to be completely honest, the fact that he's the quarterback 4 in this draft at this point, going behind Lamar and behind Mahomes, I don't really care if Hurts doesn't exactly fit the build that I'm going for with a need a wide receiver or anything like that. The guy's my quarterback too. And to get his rushing upside in the 4th round, that's a value. And it doesn't really matter how your draft started. That's a value that you just have to take.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer there. Jalen Hurts in the 4th, going after Lamar Jackson, going after Patrick Mahomes. It's an absolute no-brainer. That is 100% the right pick, despite the potential need at wide receiver. DK Metcalf goes afterwards. This is a pretty easy pick for me. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go 0 RB through the first 4 rounds here. I'm gonna take Cooper Kupp. I'm gonna see what running backs making around the turn to me. Is this me trying to play the board to perfection? Yes, because I did. At the same time, though, I'm looking at the running backs that were available on the board, and I would have been happy with quite a few of them had they made it back to me. Then looking at the wide receivers, that are still on the board here after Joe Mixon, James Cook, CJ Stroud, Mark Andrews go to wrap out the 4th, then James Conner, Keenan Allen, Tank Dell, and Dalton Kincaid to start the 5th. I'm looking at Zay Flowers, T. Higgins. I think I would have been okay with those guys. But ultimately, I did have Cooper Kupp ranked the highest out of that bunch. As much as I like T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp was still, he's still my wide receiver 22 going into this year. So to start off with, 3 guys inside of my top 24, I feel really good about. Plus my elite onesie tight end and Travis Kelce. I feel great about that. And especially with the fact that Alvin Kamara came back to me, who is still insanely high in my rankings. I cannot fathom why people are so out on him. If you're a fan of Kendre Miller, I get it. But are we really that big of fans of a guy who couldn't make much of his rookie season? I know he struggled with injury, but like the only time he got touches was when Alvin Kamara was out. When Alvin Kamara was in, this dude was only getting 5, 6, 7 opportunities per game. Is, Kendre Miller going to become a 13, 14, 15 opportunity per game kind of guy with Alvin Kamara? No, because Alvin Kamara is the better pass catcher. Alvin Kamara is still the lead back despite how inefficient he's been. I don't even want to hear that argument for him because it doesn't matter. We've known that about Alvin Kamara. We've known that the last 2 years that he's not an efficient runner anymore. But he gets it done in the receiving game. And when it's Chris Olave, and again, you and I love Rashid Shaheed, but Alvin Kamara is the second best pass catcher on that team, and they're going to keep him involved in the passing game. It just baffles me that people think he's just going to fall off a cliff this year. Even if he goes off the board as a running back 17 and returns, at running back 14, I scooped up a perfectly fine value there, and I am happy with that. So Alvin Kamara in the middle of the fifth this year, I'm very content with. Zay Flowers goes after Ty. Look, you still got T. Higgins on the board, and I know he's your guy. I'd be shocked if you didn't take T. Higgins here.
Nope, that's exactly who I'm going with. I've talked about him in a separate video about just I don't understand why people are I don't want to say out, but this is the lowest that he's gone in drafts in the last, I'll include this year, so 3 years, right? I get that he hasn't exactly delivered just yet in terms of these fantasy finishes. But again, the question that we've always asked of T. Higgins is, can he take the next step and command more targets in this offense? We don't have to answer that question. We don't have to ask that question anymore because there are targets up for grabs, regardless if he takes a step or not in this offense, right? No more Tyler Boyd, no more Joe Mixon. And there's I will call it target dust that gets shifted around every single year. I don't see why T. Higgins can't be finished better than where he's going to go in drafts. And I get that he's burned people in years past, but again, like there's a pretty straightforward path to T. Higgins, being much better than a 5th round wide receiver in your drafts.
George Pickens, Kyle Pitts, Amari Cooper, Ken Walker, David Montgomery wrap out the 5th, and George Kittle, Romeo Dunze, McLaurin, Joe Burrow, Jordan Addison. It's Roma Dunze. I know that. Start the 6th. That was an unnecessary. That was an unnecessary stray. I'm not even going to dive into it. That was unnecessary. Time middle of the 6th now. Breece Hall, Devontae Adams, Isaiah Pacheco, Jalen Hurts, T. Higgins to start your draft. I got to imagine you're looking to build out more wide receiver depth here.
Yeah, this one, this is a wide receiver pick. I'll say that. And I'll say that the two that it comes down to is Jaden Reed and Christian Kirk. I actually have them separated by literally 0.2 points. Like this is a coin flip of all coin flips. So the question that I think we need to ask is, I would say that both situations are pretty competitive, right? Like Christian Kirk, he is the veteran of that offense, so you could make the argument that he is the one already, even though he may not be a huge target getter compared to the other weapons in that offense. He's still going to be the one. Jaden Reed, no one really knows if he's a one in this Packers offense, just because everyone's so young. You don't know who's going to take a step forward, and we don't know, what things will look like with Christian Watson back in the lineup. And there have been some stats that have come out about how Jaden Reed was just not effective in the playoffs when Green Bay was actually kind of playing their best ball, right? They went into Dallas and just slaughtered them. They went into San Francisco and actually had that game, and then they lost it at the end. Jaden Reed wasn't really on the field for those games. And I don't think, you can take that and just put it exactly into, the upcoming year. But it has to have some kind of weight and it has to have some kind of merit. So I think that's why I'm going to go with Christian Kirk here. Again, not a super exciting pick with Christian Kirk, but again, he is the one in that Jacksonville offense, at least for the time being.
I do like that Christian Kirk pick a lot. I think if anything, he's going to provide your lineup stability this year, which I think is super important in a build where you start off double running back with a Breece Hall and Isaiah Pacheco in the first 3 rounds, mixing in Devontae and T. Higgins, who we're a little bit concerned about his injury history. I think that's why you're getting such a discount on his ADP this year. And I think you need some stability there with Christian Kirk in that wide receiver room. So I do really like that pick in Christian Kirk there. Evan Ingram goes off the board next. I'm not going to waste people's time, Ty. It's Anthony Richardson here for me. It is a no-brainer. We're talking about the absolute cheat code of mobile upside. We are talking about a guy who basically had 20 fantasy points in 3 of his first 4 games last year. Wow, look at that run of quarterbacks then. He was well on it before he left with the concussion in week 3. 4, thank you. Before he left with the concussion in week 4. I mean, he was well on his way to 20 fantasy points. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game, despite only playing 34, I believe it was, percent of the snaps. So I love Anthony Richardson there. It's a no-brainer for me to add to this core of Ceedee Lamb, Olave, Kelsey, Cooper Kupp, and Kamara. Then you get Rashee Rice, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris to wrap out the 6th, the first. Then Kyler Murray, Ramondre Stevenson, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love to kick off the 7th round. It's the great debate here of how long do I wait on a running back? Because I'm not a fan of most of the guys on the board right now. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. So I am going to probably end up taking another wide receiver here now that I've got both of my, elite quarterback and elite tight end out of the way. I'm looking at who my next highest ranked player is. And like you brought up Jaden Reed, Ty, of, if anything, he wasn't on the field in the playoffs. Something in me, he's still probably going to be the one this year. I'm just making sure I don't have anybody ranked ahead of him at this point. I think Christian Kirk was the only other player I had ranked ahead of him, and I don't think he would have made it back to me anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and quit delaying the pick of Jaden Reed. I think he is going to be my pick there with, CeeDee Lamb, Chris Olave, Cooper Kupp, and Jaden Reed is my wide receiver 4. I think I can afford, if you want to consider it a risk that he's not the wide receiver 1, I think it's pretty consensus that he's going to be. If anything, I think he showed the most out of that Green Bay wide. Well, that's false. I think Christian Watson showed the most out of the Green Bay wide receiver room, but Jaden Reed is definitely the safer option. I think he's more of the security, easy completion blanket for Jordan Love. So I'll just scoop him up there. He's not my favorite pick in the world this year, but I like him better than most of the other guys on the board right now too. Raheem Mostert went after that. So Ty, you got a little bit of balance to your team now. How are you starting to fill this sucker out?
I am not going to take my chance and try to play the board. I'm just going to grab what I think is the last of the, I don't want to call him an elite tight end because he hasn't really shown it just yet. But I'm going to take a guy that I think will have people saying that he is at least in this A tier, maybe high B tier of tight ends going into next season. It's my guy, Jake Ferguson. Yeah. I, again, was not going to play the board. I saw that 2 teams needed a tight end. One of them took Brock Bowers. Maybe he could have gotten back to me, but I did not want to take the chance.
I do not blame you at all. Again, no need to take the chance there, especially, with the core that you've got there. And a lot of the guys you're looking at the board now, I think could fill the role of a wide receiver 3, or the wide receiver 4, could fill the role of a running back 3 for your team nicely at this point. So I don't blame you with the Jake Ferguson pick there, especially with how much I know you believe in him. Nick Chubb, Tony Pollard, Brock Bowers, Hollywood Brown, Caleb Williams wrap out the 7th, and then Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, Zamir White, Xavier Worthy, and Brian Thomas wrap around in the 8th. So here we go, Ty. You've got every position filled on your roster. 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, quarterback, and a tight end. What's the move here?
2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. When the 2 running backs I took in the first 3 rounds, guys that I have in the top 10, I don't necessarily need to force another running back here in this spot, especially when I've got, again, Devontae Adams, T. Higgins, and Christian Kirk as my 3 wide receivers. And as much as I like those guys may not be the most like sure thing for the position, and I could use some depth there. So that's why I'm ultimately going to go with wide receiver. And this really just comes down to who I have. I'm not going to say this is player take range. I know who Cam would go with here just because he's like staring me in the face, but I'm just a bigger fan of this guy this year. It's Jackson Smith and Jigba. I've got him ranked above, let's see, DeAndre Hopkins, who's still available, Deontay Johnson, who's still available, Christian Watson, who's still available. Look, I think JSN, he by season's end will be the wide receiver 2 in the Seattle offense, but I think in the meantime, he has a pretty good shot at giving you 11, 12, and maybe even 13 some weeks, just because I think he's going to take another step in his development this year with a pass friendly offense in Seattle now. No more Shane Waldron. I'm a big fan of JSN, and having him as a depth piece makes it even better that I don't need him to start producing right out of the gate as a top 3 wide receiver for me. He's a depth piece, and I very much like upside with my depth pieces.
I love JSN this year. I've got to do some tweaking to my rankings and bring him up higher because I do think this is a year we see him break out. And I do think with Ryan Grubb now coming over from the Washington Huskies and the offense that he ran for them last year, I'm excited to see how that plays out in Seattle this year with Geno Smith, who is not afraid to sling the ball around the yard. I think I really do like that pick. Brock Purdy went next, Ty, and I was hoping, Team 6 would solve my dilemma that I'm in, but I still find myself in it. And I'll explain to the people what that dilemma is after we take a quick break. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. A little bit of different emphasis on that one this time.
Interesting.
We are 7 rounds through mock draft. We're going to do 12 rounds here, so we got 5 rounds left. So when we went into the break, I told the people I was in a dilemma. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you're looking at the board, you go, Lucas, the obvious need is at running back here. And I would agree with you. The obvious need is at running back here. I only have Alvin Kamara as my running back. That's it. My wide receivers are Ceedee Lamb, Chris Olave, Cooper Kupp, Jayden Reed. Here's the issue I'm running into, though. I'm staring down who the player that's probably going to be the lead target getter on the Los Angeles Chargers this year, attached to Justin Herbert.
Oh,
I'm starting to love Ladd McConkey, man. I really am. And this is about playing the board of I could double up on running back. Like I could say I'm deep enough at wide receiver already. There's one part of me, though, that really, really wants to try and hero RB with Alvin Kamara in the 5th round. That seems like such a stupid strategy, though. But I could be getting a guy who, joke has wide receiver 2 upside this year in Ladd McConkey. I see people talk about Josh Palmer, the most seasoned vet, has the most rapport with Justin Herbert on that team. Let's pretend that Josh Palmer hasn't been anything but a nice wide receiver 3 in the NFL for his career. People are like, oh, you could throw a late round dart, Quentin Johnston. Yeah, but like, dude's got some improvements to make. They got to change his roll up. And we got to make sure we see that first before I feel great about Quentin Johnston. Ladd McConkey is going to be the guy who plays the slot this year, plain and simple. They're going to throw him in the slot, allow him to get free on his breaks. And Brett Coleman will say, guys, how many cornerbacks in the NFL do you think can actually cover Ladd McConkey in the slot? And guys who play slot cornerback coverage. So, we're taking out, the perimeter guys in the league. The Jalen Ramsey of the world, right? Why can't I think of, there's one name that I'm trying to think of in particular. Now I can't. At any rate, there's not many slot guys that can cover Ladd McConkey. So when I'm looking at the running backs on the board, like, man, do I really want to take him and see what running backs kind of make their way back to me? I don't think I do. I don't think I want to. I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks. It's my running back 2. I know he's coming off of an ACL injury. I know that's going to be a concern for a lot of people. I'm not buying it. I think he can bounce back. This is a guy who had a clean ACL tear. He's 21 years old. They're saying he's probably not going to be ready for training camp, which fine, so be it. I don't need you to take on this massive workload right away. He only has to, outcompete Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders, which in my mind isn't all that scary. So I do like him there. And then, what a gift. I'm going to go ahead and take Zach Moss, who I absolutely love this year. Now, I know a lot of people are Chase Brown slappies. They would prefer Chase Brown to Zach Moss. And there's been more coach speak around Chase Brown than Zach Moss. But if you're going to ask me who's going to be the goal line thumper, if you're going to ask me who's going to get the early down work, who's going to play more of a Joe Mixon-esque role, it's going to be Zach Moss. It's not that I don't like Chase Brown. I think Chase Brown could be, a nice, running back 4 piece this year. I think he can, have running back 2 upside on a given week. But Zach Moss, to me, is going to be the goal line thumper. He's going to score the touchdowns. He's going to get the early down work. And if anything, he doesn't get the same receiving work as Joe Mixon, but I don't think Zach Moss needs the receiving work necessarily. So I'm fine with my running back room being Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Brooks, and Zach Moss, because it's all guys I believe in for this year. It's not the prettiest running back room in the world, but that's the cost it is of drafting, 4 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds with a tight end and quarterback in there as well. So Jonathan Brooks and Zach Moss were my next picks. In between those 2 were Javonte Williams, Jalen Warren, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Jameson Williams, and Njoku McConkey, and Christian Watson. Austin Eckler went off the board next. Ty, still only 2 running backs for you. Looking to add a third one here, or are you going to add some more wide receiver depth?
No, I think this is probably this has to be a running back pick at this point. And I'm kind of torn on which direction I kind of want to go with my running backs. Top 5 guys on the board right now: Trey Benson, Devin Singletary, Tyjae Spears, Brian Robinson, Gus Edwards. Not exactly the most ideal group of players to be looking at right here. But that is kind of the penalty that you pay, right? When there's no harm in investing in running back early, but you then are kind of building your depth in the later rounds, and depth might be overrated. Some people may make that argument. That we can have, that can be a whole episode on itself, but man, I'm just kind of looking at my rankings, and there is a wide receiver that I've got ranked above all of these running backs. Huh? You want to say it a little louder? Oh, it's
Keon Cole.
No,
he's
chance.
At the top of the sleeper board. I agree.
No chance. I'm gonna go down the board a little bit on this one. Man. Nah, I'm gonna go running back. Geez, I keep flipping on this. This is tough. Maybe I should just go with a quarterback here, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, you can't make a decision. Tua Tagovailoa is still on the board,
Jaden Daniels.
Jared Goff, he's got 14 to 17 games indoors this year.
Maybe another tight end. Oh man. We're gonna go running back, and I am going to take Devin Singletary.
Sure.
Not the most exciting. I am a big fan of Tyjae Spears. He was going to be my other option, but the fact is Devin Singletary has got a path to a ton of touches this year in this Giants offense with no more Saquon Barkley. Yes, Tajay is going to get his too in Tennessee, but you do have Tony Pollard. Like that has to count for something in redraft. Like for best ball, I'm going to take as much of Tajay Spears as I can because I don't get penalized for not getting the starts right or getting the sits wrong. Wow, and he made it all the way back to me. This is tough.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Why? Because you want him?
Don't do it.
Who wants to see Lucas fall out of his chair again?
I mean, it's predictable. He's the right pick here. If you do decide to go running back, I believe he's the right pick.
Yeah, we're gonna go Spears. I prefer.
Butler.
I think it's
prices have never been lower. Golly, man.
I think both of them. Well, hey, your old man Zeke is still available. But anyway, back to Spears. It's depth at that point. I've got 2 solid running backs. I'm probably not going to take those guys out at any point in the season besides bye weeks. So it's depth and it's a lot. I feel better taking dart throws on wide receivers that have paths to production versus running backs that are either the handcuffs or change of pace guys. Yeah, like I said, just give me the dart throws on wide receivers late.
Yeah, Brian Robinson went off the board next. He was going to end up being my pick. So I guess I'll take Zeke, the running back one in Dallas. I guess that's what I'll settle for. I mean, look, as my running back 4, though, I'm fine taking a dart throw on Zeke at that point. Again, like my expectations for him in the 10th round are pretty low. All he has to do is give me running back 4 value, and he returns on where I drafted him. So, but in all seriousness, if this Dallas Cowboys team gets to the goal line, it's gonna be Zeke punching the football and not Rico Dowdle. So, if anything, I'm looking at touchdown upside here and potentially a little bit of passing game work too. So, behind a Jonathan Brooks is Zach Moss. I'm fine with taking Zeke there as my running back 4, though I would have liked it to been, Tajay Spears or Brian Robinson. But Justin Herbert, Blake Corum, Jaden Daniels went after. Followed by Romeo Dobbs, Pat Freiermuth, Cortland Sutton, Tyler Lockett, and Chase Brown. Then I am going to go ahead and take a wide receiver here. I think I'll wait till the last round and take a dart throw on one of these last round. I might not. I'll see how the board falls. I'm going to take Khalil Shakir, because he may end up being the wide receiver 1 in Buffalo. We just don't know. I mean, I think we can all agree Dalton Kincaid's going to be the top guy, but between Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, and Khalil Shakir, I do think it's probably going to be a coin flip. You can only have so many slot guys on the field, though. That's my big worry with Khalil Shakir. Curtis Samuel's more of an inside slot guy. Khalil Shakir is an inside slot guy. Who else did they bring? They brought in another name this offseason. That's supposed to be more of an inside guy. You got Dalton Kincaid there still. We're going to toss out a name? You got Claypool and MVS, who are more perimeter guys. Keon Coleman's a perimeter guy. I feel like there's one more name, but it's not worth thinking about. At any rate, I'm fine with taking Khalil Shakir at that point as my wide receiver 5. Again, he might not even touch my lineup, but if he ends up being the best Buffalo wide receiver, I took a chance on the 11th round, and if it works, he's going to be one of the first guys off my roster. So just a pure upside pick there with Khalil Shakir. Cole Kmet goes off the board next. So Ty, to you now. Is this where you're going to start looking at dart throw wide receivers, or are you thinking about another running back?
No, this is dart throw wide receiver territory. Going to go down the board a little bit on this one. I'm going to go Jahan Dotson. Your can't quit guy. Again, for wide receiver 2 of this Washington offense that I'm expecting to be better than they were last year. They may not be super great. They may be average at best. But the wide receiver 2 in this offense has to have some kind of production in that kind of offense. So getting him in the 11th, that's probably one of the better dart throws of the year, in my opinion.
I would agree. In the 11th round, I'm really fine taking Jahan Dotson there this year. I just think, look, the offense coordinator situation improved from Eric Bieniemy to Cliff Kingsbury. You can say, oh, that's not much of an improvement, Lucas. I would typically agree with you, but it's better. Cliff Kingsbury had Christian Kirk as a top 40 wide receiver. Jahan Dotson was being drafted as the wide receiver 40 and couldn't return on value. So now you're getting Dotson as, the wide receiver 60 plus in drafts. I think there's a good chance he actually returns on that value, and some more this year as well, sniffing, top 35 potentially. I mean, I refuse to believe last year is reflective of what his NFL career is going to be. I think his NFL career looks much more like his rookie season, where he's being used more down the field, more across the middle of the field as well, in the intermediate range. Jerome Ford, Jacoby Myers, Chuba Hubbard, Josh Downs, Trevor Lawrence wrap out the 11th, and then tie in the final round. Luke Musgrave, Zach Charbonnet, Xavier Legette, Mike Williams, and Kirko Chains are first off the board. Who is your last pick going to be here?
You took a shot at this guy earlier for everyone saying that he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I'm going to go Josh Palmer. I think, yes, with Ladd going, where did he go? In the 9th round? I don't mind Ladd there at all. I think he's very much just a PPR play, though, just because I don't see him scoring a ton. And the receiving upside in PPR is much more valuable than half PPR and standard, all that kind of stuff. That's pretty obvious. But I think there is value with Josh Palmer, though, who goes, he just went in the 12th round in this mock draft. For a guy that already has rapport with Justin Herbert, who is pretty much locked into that wide receiver 2 spot in that offense. I don't think Quentin Johnston is really going to be a threat to kind of overtake either of their kind of roles to be the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1, or anything like that. That's just a dart throw and a guy that has a path to getting some kind of volume in an offense.
I don't hate that pick. I really don't. I think there is some merit to Josh Palmer potentially being the wide receiver 1 in the offense potentially. I just don't know what it's going to yield. But again, when you're taking that chance in the 12th round, that's a pick I'm perfectly okay with. Aaron Rodgers off the board next. Look, I really want to take Rashid Shaheed here. I really do. The problem is I only have 4 running backs, and considering they're Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Brooks, who's coming off of an ACL, Zach Moss, who has competition with Chase Brown, Zeke Elliott, who what? What are you laughing?
And the fact that you already have Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara on your team.
It's true. I double stacked Saints there. You're right. Who says I should have drafted? Maybe I should have drafted Derek Carr last round. Just got mega New Orleans stack. Love the New Orleans offense this year. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. Top 5 offense in the league this year. You heard it here first. I do not think that. As much as I think Clinton Kubiak is going to help, I'm still not a Clinton Kubiak fan. My pick's going to be Jaleel McLaughlin. I'm going to buy into the hype. That he's the best running back at camp. Frankly, I think he looked like the most explosive Denver running back last year when he was on the field with the ball in his hands. Now, granted, that's Javonte Williams coming off year 1 of ACL. Year 2 is always better. Here's what I'll say. Well, let me ask this, Ty. And we don't need to spend much time on this because we need to wrap out this episode. But are you buying? Let's play buy or sell. Two different topics here. Are you buying or selling Javonte Williams potentially not making the team this year? Because that came out, and I'm like, what in the world is that? That's a crappy report. So I'm selling that idea. He's going to sell
that too. Yeah.
Jaleel McLaughlin, you buying or selling that he's the best running back at camp?
I'm selling that. The idea that he's the best running back in camp, I'm selling, but that does not necessarily mean that I don't think he doesn't play a pivotal role in this Denver offense.
Yeah, I would agree. I think just because he looks the best does not mean he is the best. And so when he looks like the best, I could be for a multitude of reasons. So I'm going to sell the reality that people are going to say, well, Jaleel McLaughlin's going to be the running back 1 in Denver this year, because I don't think that's necessarily true. That being said, I do agree with you in terms of I think Jaleel McLaughlin plays a bigger role this year, and I think that's why I don't like Javonte Williams this year. But I do like Jaleel McLaughlin in the 12th round for a running back flyer on the off chance he actually does play a fairly large role this year. So that's kind of my thought process. But yeah, with all the I saw that report come out and I'm like, what kind of a crappy report is this? And then everybody started running with it. I'm like, okay, this has some legs. I thought this guy was going to get clowned for this. And yeah, some tweets popped up. And, I think the noteworthy analysts in the industry, kind of refused to comment or declined to comment on it, right? Where it's like, guys, this is stupid. We're talking about this and it's, not even middle of June yet. But
Right.
if we're doing mock drafts in the middle of June, I'm going to put a little bit of merit to that and take a flyer on him in the 12th round. Let's quick wrap out the teams here, Ty. If you want to put a spotlight on them. Again, my team from the 5th overall pick got Ceedee Lamb there in the first round, then Chris Olave in the second, Travis Kelce in the third, and Cooper Kupp in the fourth. Starting off, with 4 really strong pass catchers. And then in the 5th, took my running back 1 in Alvin Kamara, who I absolutely love this year. I don't get why I'm getting such an insane discount on him, but I will gladly take it. Followed up by Anthony Richardson in the 6th, who I think has top 3 upside this year. Then with another wide receiver, Jaden Reed, went 3 straight running backs to get some legs in this running back room with Jonathan Brooks in the 8th, Zach Moss in the 9th, and Zeke in the 10th, followed by Khalil Shakir, and Jaleel McLaughlin as upside pieces to wrap out the draft. Ty, your team from the 7 hole started with Breece Hall, and how'd you fill out the rest?
Yeah, then took Devontae Adams for my first wide receiver in the 2nd, then got a top 10 running back according to my rankings, and Isaiah Pacheco in the 3rd, then got an absolute value with Jalen Hurts in the 4th round. Then I went pass catchers the next 4 rounds, went with T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Jake Ferguson, and JSN, and then decided to fill out the rest of my team with the next 4 picks. Devin Singletary, who's just going to get touches in this Giants offense with Brian Dable as the play caller. That's a little bit of a Buffalo reunion over there. Then Tyjae Spears, who's also going to play a role in that Tennessee offense to give me some running back depth, and then some dart throws to finish up my draft with Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver 2, in a better and what should be a better Washington offense, and Josh Palmer with my last dart throw.
Well, with the teams on the socials, Ty, I think you put up a good fight this round in terms of who's going to think who has the better team here. If you think you can end my streak, I will applaud you for ending my streak. That being said, I think the people are going to be on my side here. I think I'm going to win yet another mock draft episode.
Well, everyone looks at the top 3 picks and they're going to see 2 running backs and go like, brother, what are you doing? And then they're just going to vote for you. I get how this works.
All about drafting the first 3 rounds. All about drafting the first 3 rounds. It's all that matters. When will you learn, young Padawan? We'll put it up on socials. Make sure you go place your vote on who you think drafted the best team between Ty and I. Again, all of these rankings, how we drafted these teams was based off of our rankings, fully statted out for the 2024 season. fellasdraftguide.com. You can pay $10 over there. You'll get weekly updated projections all off season long. We'll be adding a risk and upside score as well to every single player. We will be adding our video archive. We will be adding tiers to these players. Once our rankings, get more flushed out as the offseason progresses. You have a lot to look forward to in July. June is mostly we're flushing these out. We're getting a better idea for where our players are going to fall in our rankings. And in July is when you're really going to start to see those updates. So again, fellasdraftguide.com, or if you want to sign up for Underdog Fantasy with the code FELLAS, join any of their contests upon signing up. Not only will you get a free Pick'em Square for their Pick'em lobby, you'll also get up to $250 in bonus cash in the form of a first-time deposit, and our 2024 draft guide for absolutely free. So if you want your $10 to go a little bit further, sign up for Underdog, join one of their contests upon signing up, and you will get all of those for absolutely free. Anything you want to add before we sign off, Ty?
Please vote for me. I'm just desperate at this point. Just vote for me.
Don't make me say stop the count. Don't make me stop the count. I will force the count to stop if I am absolutely smoking Ty out of mercy. But no. Again, those teams will be up on socials. FFL is on Twitter. The FFL is on Instagram. Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. We had our Facebook group up as well. We haven't really talked about that much on the podcast. We had our Facebook group up. So if you're a follower on Facebook, join our Facebook community. You get an early look at our content every single week. Like our whole content calendar is released to you for the week. So you know exactly what pieces of content are coming out. It's the only place you can find that. We don't post it anywhere else. We have a lot of community engagement as well. We talk dynasty trades. We talk must draft players, and it's a lot of community feedback as well. So it's a fun place for you to jump in, get some dialogue with us, and some dialogue with other followers of our channel as well. So again, Fantasy Football Fellas community over on Facebook groups. If you just want to follow the Facebook page as well, Fantasy Football Fellas over there. We'll be back later this week with a little bit of risk versus reward. Are you willing to take the risk on 8 players in order to reap their potential rewards this year? That's going to be a fun episode to talk through. We'll be back with some updated rankings as well, some consensus rankings for us here at the Fantasy Football Fellas on YouTube this week. TikTok, we had some great videos in store as well. We got Dark Horse Quarterback 1 this year, and some more best values that we like in drafts as ADP continue to changes as the offseason goes on. So a lot coming out for you all. So make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications as well. If you're watching over on YouTube, listening over to the podcast feed, we are grateful for all of you who support our channel and the podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see y'all soon. Deuces.